it's Jaymi Anderson, the Pilot Wife Coach, and I'm just continuing my series on the 5 questions that you can ask yourself to help you get through this tough time in the aviation industry. In my first video, I talked about what you can actually even control during this time. In my second video, I talked about what possibilities are made because you have more time with your pilot at home. And in this video, I'm going to talk about family time. Because whether it is more family time because all of you are together because your pilot is home, or maybe even beyond that, you have kids that are doing some remote learning, or like my kids are part remote learning, part in person, so they're home more of the time. And what does that really look like? So question number 3 to ask yourself is, how can we take advantage of more family time? I want you to really stop and think from your kids' perspective, and it doesn't matter if they are preschool age or, like my kids, high school and college age. You need to ask yourself, how are they going to remember this time? Are they going to remember it as a time where we were able to do some kind of fun things as a family just because we were home a lot more? Or is it something that they're going to remember as a time of a lot of tension because Dad's job was unstable, or because there was a lot of stress due to COVID, or all of those things, and they just felt that as a tension time? So you get the opportunity to control the climate in your house, and it's a big responsibility, I get it, but you really do need to think about from their perspective what that makes possible. For us in the spring, it was hard when school shut down. I have a daughter who was a senior in high school last year, so she was one of those kids that lost out on her senior prom, her senior play, graduation. We were eventually able to have an abbreviated graduation ceremony that took place later in the summer, but it was definitely something that affected us greatly. But you know what was really good about that was that we had been in a situation where we had so many activities stacked up as a family that we didn't really see each other. We were just kind of passing through. You know, we'd have dinner maybe once a week together by the time with Brian being gone and the kids having all of their activities, and I was running them around. And when everything stopped, we were all in the house at the same time. Now, it was under some stressful circumstances, but we also were able to kind of take advantage of that, and we played some board games together, and we put puzzles together, and you know, we cried together, we were frustrated together, but it really ended up being a time that was kind of precious in its own right. And this is now continued, right? We thought, I know if you're like me, you were thinking this was going to be over by now, but still it's going on, and especially with a lot of remote learning. So again, ask yourself, is there anything that we can take advantage of because of this remote learning if you do have kids that are in school age and that are at home? If you have preschool aged kids, and so, you know, that hasn't changed for you, maybe you need to just think about, again, what can we take advantage of because Dad's home all the time? Is there something that we can do as a whole family that maybe wasn't possible before? And so your action step with this is to sit down with your kids, with all of your family together, and make a list. Make like a bucket list for your family. What is it that you want to do now that you're all together? Is it something as simple as just reading through a book as a family? Maybe it's a family road trip. Maybe you can go hiking every once in a while, or go, you know, out sledding, or something that you maybe was hard before because you had to be in school. What are those things that you want to take advantage of? And just to really encourage some play as a family, and what kind of fun times that you can have. Now, as another piece of this, I really want to address something that is unique to moms, because when there's more people at home all the time, we get burdened with a lot more. It's not anybody's fault. It's kind of just the way that society has laid things out for us. But if you're like me, you feel like you have a lot more on you when everybody's home all the time. So I want to talk about one of the most exciting books that I've come across in the last little bit, and it's this one. It's called Fair Play by a gal named Eve Rodsky. And why I think it's so valuable is because it has given a vocabulary to what I think women have felt for so long. So I'm going to read to you just a little bit from a chapter, from a section titled, Why Can't We Ever Seem to Get Ahead of Our To-Do Lists? And it talks, it gives definition to some of the things that you might be feeling. I think the single biggest takeaway for me in this was this concept of mental load. I felt it, but I didn't have the vocabulary to describe it before. But listen to this. Mental load is the never-ending mental to-do list you keep for all your family tasks. Though not as heavy as a bag of rocks, the constant details banging around in your mind nonetheless weigh you down. Mental overload creates stress, fatigue, and often forgetfulness. For instance, where did I put the car keys, right? All of those kind of things. She goes in to talk to a couple other things. Another great example here is emotional labor, which I feel like that we are taking on a little bit more of these days because of the natural stress. It says emotional labor. This term has evolved organically in pop culture to include the maintaining relationships and managing emotions work, and that's where I think that we come in right now. Like calling your in-laws, sending thank you notes, buying teacher gifts, and soothing meltdowns at Target, right? Maybe put that into comforting your kid who hasn't been able to see their friends as much as they'd like, or being in charge of making sure everyone has a mask when they leave the house, like all of those things that all of a sudden fall on us and just add to our to-do list as if we didn't have enough to do already. The reason I recommend this book and even wanted to bring it up is because when everybody is at home all the time, there is opportunity for you to share some of that mental load. But it takes some work to have some conversations with your spouse and even with your kids. Depending on how old they are, there's age-appropriate things that they can take responsibility for. And what I like about the introduction of this is it is talking about not just giving everyone a to-do list, because that still places the mental load on you, but instead sharing that mental load and making them 100% responsible for certain things. Probably when my kids were in about 5th or 6th grade, I made them 100% responsible for their own laundry. I put them in charge of it. Whenever you do it, whatever you do it, I showed them how to do it. They are capable of running a washer and dryer. If they don't get their clothes folded, it's no longer on me anymore. And so that's just an example of something like a small thing, but when everybody's in the house all the time, those things add up and that stress adds up. And it's a really good opportunity to have a conversation with your husband. One of the things that I hear from a lot of women when I'm coaching them is that he doesn't do anything, or he's good help, but he's not here. And so I just encourage you to think about, how do we move beyond our families being our helpers and our families actually, family members having responsibility for things. So just another piece to add to this, to again just give you some time back, give you some power back in all of this when you can't control a whole lot of other things going on in the world. Thank you for sharing, or thank you for listening. You can find me at pilotwifecoach.com if you want to talk further about any of this. My next video is going to be about community and those people that you can share your burdens with. So I look forward to sharing more with you soon.